We're into the swing of summer. It's good to see so many people joining us. Just give a couple more minutes and then we'll start. This is our 4th session.
Yeah, I see a couple new people, so just bear with us, guys. As soon as we get a couple more people, we'll kind of explain to you how we do this and you know, what to expect.
Everybody had a good Father's Day weekend. It was beautiful outside. In the meantime, while we wait, if you want to just check in the chat box, you can go ahead and type in one word, how you come today. If you have a question about that, you can also type in any questions that you might have. The word I would use, how I come, is content. Had a good weekend. Happy. Awesome. It's good to come be happy on a Monday. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming. Hi and welcome. We're glad that you guys are all here. My name is Lisa and this is Allison.
Hello.
And we are therapists at Barrington Youth and Family Services. We created this workshop to provide a safe space for you all to come and learn and share what you might be going through during this difficult time of social distancing, the pandemic, and anything else you might be experiencing right now. We structured the workshop to first be a quick informational session, followed by a discussion portion where you will all have a chance to share what's on your mind and any thoughts or questions you might have. So before we begin, I want to announce that the informational section will be recorded so that we can post this for others who are not able to attend right now. The discussion portion will not be recorded and will be kept confidential. Everyone should remain muted during this information portion. That way the recording will only show us talking. We will be splitting off into groups during the discussion portion. So if you could please type in the grade that you will be going to in the fall into the chat box, that would be great. We will be leading you in a few exercises as well. So if you want to grab a pen and a piece of paper now, that would be great. We'll give you a couple seconds to go ahead and do that before we get started on the teaching portion.
All right, I hope you guys had a chance to grab the pen and paper. If you didn't do that now, only saw a couple people check in with their grade. So if you can just go ahead and do that so we can split off into groups later, that would be great. Just type it into the chat box. But I want to kind of get started. So I see a lot of new faces. Or just names. I guess I don't see everybody's face. A lot of new names this week. For those of you who haven't been with us these last couple of weeks, we've been just talking about everything we've been going through because of the pandemic, what we've been feeling. And last week we talked about the importance of taking care of ourselves and doing things that we enjoy, and what helps us relax, and doing things that give us energy. So going along with that self-care topic we talked about last week is coping with how we are feeling. And that's what we're talking about today, is what is coping, what are coping skills. We're gonna talk about how to cope with what we are all feeling. First, utilizing healthy coping skills can be key to getting through these tough times we're going and facing right now. With the pandemic, with social distancing, people are handling this uncertain time in different ways. We are all feeling different emotions, and what we need to manage our feelings is going to be different person to person. There's a lot of things we can actively do to help cope with our emotions. And later on, we will review how to develop like a personal coping toolbox and how to pick the specific skills that are right and helpful for you. But before we get to that, I just want to go over a few general things that can help most people deal with what we are all experiencing right now, again, with the social distancing and the uncertainty of the pandemic. So these are things that are helping us cope. First, we need to understand that simply just like the passage of time will help us cope. Everything happened so quickly. Our world was suddenly turned upside down. Everything we were used to changed and will continue to change for the foreseeable future. It can take a while to adjust to all of this change and find a new sense of normal. If you find yourself constantly struggling, worried, anxious, irritable, angry, disappointed, sad, just be patient with yourself. It takes time to heal. It takes time to learn to manage all these new feelings that resulted from the pandemic that we might not have felt before. And that's okay. Things will get better. It's not permanent, though it might feel that way. We need to hold on to hope and remind ourselves that this too shall pass. It's important to remind ourselves that there are positives and hope that things will change and get better soon. Another very important action we can all take that will help us cope tremendously is developing a new routine for ourselves. So during the school year, school naturally shapes our daily routines, right? We know when to get up, we know how long school lasts for, we know what time sports ends and when we can do our homework, right? School naturally shapes our daily routines and it provides structure to our days. Right now, a lot of people have lost routine, have lost structure, and some are choosing to forego all routines, staying in bed, not changing clothes, binging Netflix, playing endless video games, or scrolling through social media all day. Even though those things may sound relaxing, oftentimes it will leave us feeling drained, bored, feeling alone. So structure is really key to helping us know what to expect each day and helps us function effectively. For example, if I wake up at 2 p.m., played video games for a few hours, it's pretty likely I'm going to procrastinate any work I have to do, whether that's summer school assignments, chores, or just any goals that I set for myself to accomplish that day. Most likely I'll end up doing nothing all day and probably feeling worse. The more action we take and the more things we do, even small things, the more energy we gain and end up doing even more than maybe what we planned and set out to accomplish. So the more we do, the more energy we gain, the better we feel. Obviously it's summer, I get that, and we're in the middle of this pandemic, so we will have to develop a whole new routine. Keep in mind it takes a while to form new habits, If your routine feels weird at first, or it seems like it's not working for you, or one day you do it and then the next day you give up and you do nothing, again, just be patient with yourself and keep with it. Eventually, the more you try, the more it will feel like normal, the more it becomes a habit. Some are feeling like, why implement a routine at all? There's no point in doing anything, so why try? But it is actually extremely important to our mental and emotional health to try and work towards accomplishing things each day. Setting one small goal each day can help us manage what we're struggling with, again, during the pandemic. Maybe you do something you look forward to. Maybe it's as simple as, today I'm just gonna go on a bike ride or work on whatever hobby I enjoy. Whatever goal you set for the day, just be honest with yourself on what you can realistically accomplish. You don't want to set your goals too high, otherwise you're going to set yourself up for failure. So set small goals. It's likely, if we set small goals, they're going to be different than what goals we had before all of this happened, because we're going through a lot right now. Our energy, our mood, everything has changed. And again, that's okay as long as we keep working towards something. And in addition to setting small, realistic goals, we need to find pleasure in those small things too. What once brought us pleasure and happiness might no longer be an option. So we need to find enjoyment in little things that we might have brushed off before or taken for granted even before all this happened. This could be enjoying a walk with your family, with a friend. Maybe it's listening to music when you didn't have time to do so pre-pandemic. You can cook your favorite food, engage in whatever little things that make you feel good in the moment. And sometimes it's easier said than done to find pleasure in the small things, especially when we're dealing with so much right now and it seems like everything just kind of sucks. It can be helpful to focus on what we do have, the things we're grateful for, big or small. Maybe we are grateful for our family, we're grateful that our family is healthy. Maybe we're just grateful that our parents are still employed. Maybe we're grateful for extra time together. Maybe we're grateful that we can finally see our friends again, or go to a restaurant outside if anybody's done that. Focusing on the blessings that we do have versus what the pandemic has stolen from us and what we no longer have can help remind us that not everything is bad. A good way to find gratitude and cope with what we're feeling is to go back in some way and care for and help others. Giving back, helping others generally makes us feel good. It gives you a sense of purpose that you might have kind of lost because of the pandemic. I challenge all of you guys to think, what's something you can do right now to support others and get involved? Maybe it's volunteering, working, I don't know, making masks like people have. Or maybe it's just giving advice to a friend who you know is struggling right now. Overall, right now, we need to stay in the present moment. Just take it day by day, and that's what's going to help us cope. It's easy to let our minds wander to things that went wrong in the past or worry about the uncertainty of the future. But if we stay in the present and take things day by day, moment by moment, we will start feeling better. It's really common right now that after a period of feeling good, we find ourselves backsliding into old feelings of extreme, I don't know, sadness, despair, anger. And it's normal to be experiencing this roller coaster of emotions right now. Ups and downs, periods of doing well followed by periods of doing not so well, or even struggling a lot. Nobody is perfect. All we can do is our best at the given moment and acknowledge the effort that we're putting in. When you feel good, just keep doing what's working. If you're struggling, reach out for help. Talk to parents, siblings, friends, maybe school counselor or therapist if you have one, about what you're going through and how you feel. Maybe get advice even on how other people are coping. And Lisa's going to talk to us a little bit about different factors that affect coping.
Thank you, Allison. Okay, so the following factors can influence a person's coping capabilities when dealing with a disaster, a crisis, a traumatic event, or a difficult situation. Personal factors such as age, your gender, your cultural values and beliefs, your spiritual or religious beliefs and values, your physical well-being, your psychological well-being can all play a part in your coping capacity, like how much you can cope, what capabilities you have to engage in healthy coping. So sometimes we encounter adverse experiences that create risks in coping. So risks make coping a little bit more difficult. It makes it a little bit harder to do the self-care and prioritize the simple things when you've experienced these adverse experiences. Some adverse experiences include when you have strained relational histories. So you could have a disruptive family or a disruptive family history, unstable living environment, living in a fractured community, poverty or low socioeconomic status, amongst others. When people experience these types of situations, coping skills can become depleted and can take more work than usual. So risk factors involve experiences of previous critical incidences, such as domestic abuse, terrorism, war. Previous exposure to aggression and violence can impact your coping style. This can mean actual firsthand experience where you were physically, emotionally, or psychologically harmed, or as well as secondhand, which when you witness a harm. Such incidences can lead to poor coping abilities and strategies. So some of the experiences that might impact our coping strategies are difficulty learning from previous experiences, some low self-esteem, unstable work history, lack of finances, chronic mental health struggles, past or present legal problems, impulsivity, all or nothing thinking. This is when we view something as all good or all bad, also known as black and white thinking, where there is not any space for all the options and opinions that are in between two extremes. A negative perception of other people's responses, exaggerated future probability of something happening, something bad happening. Family transitions is another adverse experience. It can be a divorce, a death, birth of a child, work stress, and or having multiple situations like this. So predisposing factors can also put us in a vulnerable struggle with coping in times of difficulty. Some such factors are as follows and may indicate you need to reach out and ask for help for additional support from a professional or support group. So experiencing extreme fear, experiencing deep levels of helplessness, horror, panic, anticipated versus an anticipated crisis, individual or having a national crisis, and having a depleted coping skills, loss of support and loneliness, and avoiding stressful emotions. Those are indicators that you may need to reach out and bolster some of your support. Those are some of the impacts of negative ways in which your coping skills can be impacted. The other thing is we have resilience also. So there's some ways that we can kind of bolster our resilience and our ability to cope with things. So resilience can be described as the ability to cope or bounce back and keep on growing. So both emotionally and psychologically in challenging and often traumatic situations. So secure attachment bonds means having the confidence in our family and friends to support us. These bonds serve as a primary defense for getting through difficult situations, both for children and adults. So effective coping in times of difficult situations includes the ability to take care of yourself and also having the insight and ability to reach out and access social support when your own resources are no longer working properly. So it is believed that as people mature, that secure attachment helps you self-regulate the stress response and emotions, as well as receive comfort from others. In addition to secure attachment, resiliency also serves as a defense for long-term behavioral and emotional problems. Some resilient individuals use a critical incident or a trauma as an opportunity to reorganize their lives and to move towards health. For a resilient person, a critical incident can potentially serve as a catalyst for growth, known as post-traumatic growth. Social support is also a stress buffer. For example, individuals that have at least one person in their life that they can rely on and are confident, and they believe that they can be vulnerable with them. This is called an appraisal support, having others available to help appraise stressful situations. Those with such supports are believed to deal more effectively, physiologically and psychologically with the effects of stress. It is believed that positive automatic thoughts may also serve as a stress buffer, similar to appraisal support. So some of the factors that have demonstrated a buffering effect on stress is physical fitness. So staying physically active engages your body and produces endorphins to combat stress hormones while bolstering your immune system. Having a sense of humor, finding ways to laugh in times of stress produces a feel-good neurochemical dopamine in your brain. Optimism. Some personalities may find it more difficult or easy depending on their natural thought processes. The more positive leaning thoughts we engage in, the more neural pathways in our brains are reinforced with positive pathways. And the opposite is true too. We can build strong neural pathways towards negative thinking patterns as well. A good buffer for traumatic stress or stress is self-esteem. The more confidence that we have in our abilities to overcome difficult circumstances, the smoother transition to coping skills that are healthy and helpful. Good health practices. When we are in the habit of practicing good health, like going to the doctor on a regular basis, staying active, eating healthy, practicing good hygiene, brushing our teeth, showering, and such, enables healthy coping by way of self-care and habits already in place.
Thanks, Lisa. So now that we have a general understanding of what factors can help and hinder coping, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit further about developing your own coping toolbox. We know already that coping skills help us tolerate, minimize, and deal with stressful situations in life. If we start to manage emotions well, we can start to feel better physically and psychologically. Not all coping skills are created equal. So how do you know what is right for you? I often get new clients coming into my office asking me to provide them with all the answers, specific coping skills that are going to work for them and fix all their problems. Not once am I able to provide a person with a list of coping skills saying, okay, do these exact things this exact way and things will get better. Because there's no one size fits all coping mechanism. What works for one person might not work for another. For example, listening to music can help a person release pent up emotions and help express intense feelings, right? Have you ever sat in your room or in your car and played angry music, blasted it as loud as you can, belting out the lyrics to whatever your favorite angry song is? Or have you ever put on your favorite breakup song and repeat just to sit and cry for a moment? Whether or not you've done this, music can be a great coping mechanism that allows us to release intense emotions and de-stress. But consider another person who might be feeling down and depressed and lonely. Listening to sad, depressing music might actually fuel negative feelings and cause the person to slip more into a funk, cause them to be more depressed. So not all coping skills we consider to be healthy are right for all people. And actually, when it comes to choosing coping skills, it's not about which skill is right and which skill is wrong. It's about what is helpful versus what's unhelpful for the individual. And then it's also recognizing what is actually harmful to everybody overall. So just because a strategy helps you endure emotional pain, it does not mean it's healthy. Some coping skills could create bigger problems in your life. Oftentimes, it's tempting to engage in strategies that give us a quick relief, but again, create bigger problems for you down the road. I'm just going to list a few harmful things that are always going to be poor coping skills, always going to be ineffective coping. First, drinking alcohol or using drugs. So substances may temporarily numb your pain, right? But they don't resolve any of your issues. Substances typically will introduce more problems in your life and actually have a negative effect on your mood and can cause you to feel worse. Another poor coping strategy that people engage in is overeating. So sometimes people think, okay, I'm feeling bad, let me go grab that tub of ice cream from the freezer. Food is often used to cope with how we feel. But trying to stuff your feelings with food can lead to unhealthy relationships with food and even weight loss, weight issues. Sometimes people go the other extreme and restrict their eating or make themselves throw up when they eat because it makes them feel more in control. But clearly, these behaviors are very unhealthy. Other examples, some individuals engage in self-harm behaviors, which is a very dangerous coping mechanism. People hurt themselves to relieve distressing emotions, but that relief, again, is only temporary. They don't actually feel better in the long run. The feelings don't go away. Oftentimes, it's followed by extra shame, extra guilt that leaves us feeling even worse than we did before. Another poor coping mechanism, sleeping too much. So sometimes people, when they're stressed out, either take a nap or sleep late and avoid facing the day. Sleeping offers that temporary escape, again, that we talked about from your problems. But when you wake up, they don't go away. So all these harmful examples, people are dealing with negative emotions by avoiding them. So the key word is they're avoiding how they're feeling, they're not dealing with it. And by avoiding it, they're not going away. They're gonna come back. Even healthy coping strategies can become unhealthy if you're using them to avoid your problems. If you never resolve your issues, if you always avoid negative feelings, your coping strategies are only masking the problems. So how do we determine what's helpful versus unhelpful? We just listed what's harmful, But again, sometimes helpful things are not always helpful for individuals in that moment. So I'm going to go through kind of a process of how you can check in with yourself, check in on how you are feeling, listen to what that feeling is communicating to you, and remember that a few weeks back when we were discussing the topic of dealing with difficult feelings for anybody who was on this call a few weeks ago, we said every emotion has a purpose. So there's a reason we feel everything we feel. There's a reason we feel sad sometimes. There's a reason we feel angry sometimes. It's telling us something. Every emotion is telling us what we need. So if you give me a moment, I'm going to give you a few examples just by sharing my screen with you. I just have to do that real quick so we can look at some examples of what feelings might be talking and telling us. Again, it could be different person to person, but these are just some examples to get you guys thinking. Okay, sadness might be telling me I need to cry. Loneliness might be telling me I need connection. I need to reach out to a friend. Shame might be telling me I need self-compassion. Resentment, I need to forgive. Emptiness, maybe I need to be creative. Anger, maybe I need to look at my boundaries. Anxiety, maybe I need to get out of my comfort zone and do something I normally might not do. Stress might be telling me I need to take things one step at a time. I need to take a break. Another example, if you're overwhelmed, maybe you need to step back. Stress, maybe you need a relaxing coping mechanism. If you're angry, maybe you need a coping mechanism that allows you some way to get your anger out in a positive way. If you're drained, maybe you need to rest and recharge to gain your energy. If you're alone, maybe you need to reach out for support. Again, these are just some examples to get us thinking. If you were on the call last week, I shared this screen with you, 50 ways to take a break. It's about first identifying again what you're feeling, then listening to what that feeling is telling you and what it's telling you you need, then picking a skill from your toolbox or maybe even just grabbing a list like this one and picking a skill that's going to address that need that you're lacking. For example, if I identify I'm feeling alone, if I identify I need connection, I'm going to maybe pick the skill on this list that says call a friend. Remember, in general, what's helpful today might be unhelpful tomorrow because our situation might be different and what we are feeling might be different. Our feelings change day to day. What we experience changes day to day. So what we need to cope might change day to day. To build a toolbox, you need to find what works for you. It's important to develop your own toolkit of coping skills that you'll find useful. You may need to experiment a bit with a variety of different coping strategies to help you discover which ones work best for you. While experimenting, you might find that certain coping strategies work best for specific issues or emotions. Just remember, try out everything to see what works, and remember that you don't have to be good at something for it to be good for you. If you're not good at yoga, it could still be something relaxing for you. If you've never tried journaling before, you might notice it's actually helpful. So just be patient and try different things to see what works for you. After experimenting, you will have a toolbox ready to go. You'll know what to do, and that could help you feel better, equipped to face challenges ahead. So usually people discuss coping strategies as strictly a reactive strategy. Fix our problems, change our negative emotions. When we feel bad, do something to cope, right? But utilizing proactive coping strategies, so again, if you were on our call last week, that means good self-care routine all the time, even when we feel good, even when we feel the positive emotions, can be extremely helpful to manage any future obstacles we're likely to face. For example, if this past year you've really put a lot of focus and time into prioritizing healthy coping in your life, maybe you utilized that Calm app that the school provides everybody. Maybe you take breaks often, you exercise regularly, you talk to your friends, you talk to a therapist or school counselor. Then those proactive coping strategies you're doing on a regular basis might have helped you deal with the unexpected life changes brought on and all the stress brought on from the pandemic. And maybe you were better able to deal with stress, boredom, loneliness, and adapt to all the changes better than a friend who utilized ineffective coping mechanisms for the last year. When it comes to coping skills, there's always room for improvement, guys. So that's why you always want to keep experimenting. So assess what other tools and resources you can use and consider how you might continue to sharpen these skills that you are already in your toolbox for the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. Okay, so right now we're going to do a little exercise. It's a proactive coping exercise. There is a handout that will be with the Barrington Youth and Family Services YouTube channel, as well as any social media posts. It should be referenced with it. But we're going to go ahead and walk through this exercise together. And so you can print the slide that the sheet is on, or you can take out a piece of paper, a plain piece of paper, and on the first top half of the paper, we're going to write down 1 to 3 hopes and dreams that you might have for either the far or the near future. And we'll just give you a minute or so that you can write that down. That's on the top half of the paper. Then on the bottom portion of the paper, you're going to section it into 3 sections. One is going to be a box, and then the other 2 are going to be open to the top portion. So leave the top portion of those other 2 columns open. So the bottom half you're going to divide into 3 columns, 1 that will be enclosed in a box, and the other 2 will be open to the top half of that gives you access to the hopes and dreams section. So in the center bottom column, you're going to draw a ladder. This can kind of be chicken scratch too. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be a perfect work of art. So in the enclosed box, next to the ladder, you're going to write down thoughts and beliefs that keep you stuck at the bottom of that ladder, away from your hopes and dreams.
Lisa, should I share an example so people can see the image we're talking about?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the example Lisa is referring to, guys.
Perfect. So the top portion is my hopes and dreams. You can write down 1 to 3 of those. And then in this enclosed box, you're going to write down the thoughts and self-beliefs that keep you feeling stuck at the bottom. And then in that box on the right, next to the ladder, you can write thoughts and self-beliefs that help you move up the ladder. Okay, so for an example, let's say my dream was to learn how to ride a motorcycle. Some of my stuck thoughts might be that I'm scared, or that I'm not strong enough, or that I'm too old. Now in the section where the thoughts are that would bring me up that ladder, the climbing thoughts are going to be something like, you're never too old to learn. Or once you learn something, you won't be as scared. Or you can always get stronger. I can always get stronger.
So at this time, guys, we'll give you a couple more minutes to finish up your thoughts and finish the activity. We are going to attempt to split off into groups for the discussion portion to give you guys a chance to, give us your feedback on what thoughts that came up for you, what your hopes and dreams are for this activity, and then also to reflect on some of the material we talked about with coping. So if you haven't done so already, if you can please type in to the chat box what age you are, so we can determine if we're going to split off into groups. If we have enough people, I see 1 or 2 people dropped off. So we want to know if we need to split into 2 groups or if we can remain as one. So if you want to type in your age now, that would be great. Know that during the discussion portion, we are going to stop the recording like we mentioned.